Hi, this is Brian. Welcome back to my channel. Although it's winter time, I have made progress on George's Little Genius plow that I've been restoring. Today is kind of a nice day, so let's make a video on the progress I've made throughout the winter. Let's walk over to the plow. Well, here's the plow sitting in my backyard. Notice no snow. It's been 50 degrees already. Let's start with the colters, okay? Let's start with this colter on the land side. This colter was pretty much stuck, and this is an IHC colter. The other colter is a different brand. We'll get to that. Here's what I did. Of course, it always starts with loosening up these bolts so it can be adjusted. That just takes heat. Notice the owie. This colter tells a story. Now, we don't know what the story is because George is no longer with us to tell us, but it's staying. I'm not going to grind it down. I replaced these two bolts because they were the wrong bolts. They had 7/16 bolts in there, and then of course the heads would turn. I put 1/2-inch bolts in as should be. Now with this open, the colter is very adjustable, and I have it adjusted quite right. But here's what I found on the colter. We're going to talk about this bolt that goes through the center of the colter. Here it is. You can see it's in pretty rough shape. And it's only 1/2 inch. So what I did, it rolled off the block. This colter was worn. There was quite a bit of play. There's none now, but there was quite a bit of play. I took the colter off and I drilled through the center of the colter. I thought about taking the colter off to show you, but I think you can imagine what that looks like. And I had problems drilling through it. I kind of got my butt kicked a little bit. This hub has a sleeve on the inside, and that sleeve was really hard. Fortunately, to get a 5/8 inch hole, I only had to remove maybe a 32nd or 64th of an inch. And I did that by hand, but it was very difficult. My corded drill would really grab hard. Then I made a 5/8 bolt because I wanted a smooth shank like this one had. And it's hard for me to find 5/8 carriage bolts that are only partially threaded. I have to go to McMaster-Carr to do that. So I made a bolt out of 5/8 shank. I silver soldered on a square head. And then I actually even took my MIG welder and deposited, which actually put another weld on between the shank and the head. Then I ground it down. Yeah, it looks okay, huh? But look at how free this thing turns now. And there's just no wiggle in it. It is so nice. Here's what kind of kicked my butt a little bit. There are two grease zerks, one on this side, one on the other side. Neither of them had grease zerk fittings in them. The holes were just filled with like a brick thing, but there was no way for the grease to get through that sleeve that's inside this hub. Well, I thought I would just drill this out. Well, the one on the other side, I burned up an 1/8 inch drill bit right away, but I thought nothing of it because it was an old bit. I got a new one, and that one went through on the other side. I came to this side, then burned up that bit, but then I thought, well, it's because it's now a used bit. Got another one, burned it up, got a cobalt bit, burned it up. That sleeve is so hard. It's unbelievable. No wonder I had a hard time with that 5/8 bit going through this. But then I used a carbide masonry bit and a hammer drill, and I poked a hole. Now both sides of this can get grease. I've already have it greased up, and it spins, like Kenny would say, like butter. And the other side just looks like this. It just gets a nut and a cotter key is all. And you don't even really tighten the nut down super duper tight. It's just there to keep the bolt on, and the cotter key is there to keep the nut on. Look how that spins now. I'm very happy with how this IHC colter turned out. But the other one's a different story. Let's walk around the plow. You can see I've done some painting. I painted the back. I came out with my wire brush and scraper and kind of did the minimum and painted it. My parts for the tail wheel are coming. In my other video, I told you what I was going to do. Adam is making the parts for me. That'll be a separate video all in itself on that. Let's get over to the other Colter though. And yeah, I know, what's the purpose of painting that? It's just going to come off when it goes to the ground. But for now it's painted. Oh, you know what? I want to ask a question first. Does anybody know what this clamp is for? George had a clamp, or his family had a clamp on here. Now I put this piece of pipe in there just so there's something for this clamp to clamp down on. But it was just dangling loose. I heated it up, got it loose. Why would they have had a clamp? Can anybody answer that? But I'm not taking it off because it was there. That's the way George had it. That's the way it's staying. Let's go to this Colter, which is on the furrow side. Of course, let me start here. Same story. Heat it up, take it apart, get those bolts open. Now this is not an IH Colter. This one just has one bolt, where the other one had two bolts. This is a new bolt, of course I replaced that. But I have the Colter off, because this comes apart real easy, and then now that I've had it off, I sanded it and cleaned it and wire brushed it and everything. Here's the Colter laying right here. Notice the IHC was cast. This one's welded. And I can't see any stampings or anything on there to tell who made this. This one has an OE. I have to send this one out to my son's farm for welding with his TIG. I think I'm going to ask him to TIG it. And I can't TIG weld here at home. But here's the problem with this one. When this Colter was on, there was no nut on here, and the ends of the threads, which stuck out about another 1/4 inch, were really banged up, maybe from hitting rocks and stuff. And at the time I didn't realize that this Colter came off easily, so I reached in and straightened the threads out with a thread file, and then got a die on and straightened out the threads. This is a 5/8 bolt. And I tried to press the bolt out, and it wouldn't come. You can see I didn't make any progress whatsoever. I tried so hard. And I knew it was stuck, because when I saw it without the nut on, I knew that bolt. And this is a square shank bolt. Something very special. So I don't know that I'm going to get this bolt out. I don't dare damage it anymore. But because this one got grease, here's the greaser, it turns really nice. This one's in fairly decent shape, other than it's busted. So I think that's the story of the two Colters, and I don't know if I will replace this one with an IHC one. I could do that. I don't know. This is what George had. So I'm kind of, well, either way I'm going to weld it. Whether I replace it or not is a different story. But here, let me take a minute and show you what else I've done to the plow. Now that I feel the Colters, well, this one isn't done, but the work is known to get it done. I've done a lot of work to the plow over the winter time to get the correct bolts. Wherever there was hex bolts, I took them out and put square bolts in, or carriage bolts. And here I made new rods because they had wire. Now these rods are not adjustable. A true IH plow would be. But when I had this apart, it was clear that this arm hadn't been apart since the Korean War, so I'm just going to leave it. If I want to make an adjustable rod, it's just make another piece and Siamese them side by side. That's a $5 thing. I've gone around and put cotter keys. There was nails everywhere. Again, I've straightened out. I took the hex bolts off and put square head bolts in. And on this one right here, I put a bushing in actually, and oh my gosh, did that ever tighten up this mechanism. But I put a 5/8 by half bushing in there, and there you can see evidence of new nuts and bolts everywhere. The spring was missing. My friend from South Dakota brought me a spring. I'm going to save the work I did on the hitch. The hitch is still at Adam's getting welded, And I'll make a different video of the hitch when the hitch comes back. But there too, I've been changing all of the bolts. I found new square head bolts at a tractor salvage yard, Larry's in Clarence, Iowa. Again, new rods, new bolts as necessary. You know, things like the chain and the loop for the rope. I've done that over the winter time. Just the other day, I made up a new spring for the trip mechanism. Here's the old spring. It was shot. New spring in everywhere. New bolts and things like that. So clearly what's next is, of course, the red paint. All the red stuff needs to be painted. I'll make a video on the tail wheel when those parts come from Adam. They're already machined, I just have to get them. This forward plow I need to do a little bit of welding on. I want to weld up that little area. And I can do that with my MIG welder. I'm going to weld that up and grind it down. But that's nothing. And then this hub has to come apart for repair. And the real work then, and I'm going to save it to last, is to tear this entire mechanism apart. You know, but it turns, so I don't know that I'll find anything too much. Tires held air all winter long, including the tail wheel. So I'll step back. That's the progress I made on the plow during the winter time. That Colter is, in my opinion, 100% done, and I'm very happy with the way it turned out. So I think George would be happy, he'd be pleased with the progress we're making on his plow. And then of course the idea is we're going to hook it up behind the H and actually plow with this. Well, what do you say? That's not bad progress for winter work. You know, all this was done during the winter. When it gets nice out now, I'll haul it to the front of the house so it's closer to the welder, and that's where I'll rebuild the hubs. I don't want to rebuild the hubs out on the grass here. But I feel good progress has been made. The plow is coming along. It should be in the dirt fairly soon. Thank you for watching my video. And if you know why they would have had that clamp on the back of the plow, please leave a comment and tell me. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.